Clark Lea may have found his next star at running back.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, happy Friday. Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Super Bowl 59 is here, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. New customers can bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. And more on Super Bowl 59 later. Also, the Hoops team is in a must-win scenario versus Texas at Memorial Gym. What needs to happen for them to pull that off and keep their tournament hopes alive, although kind of bleak, but the SEC, I think, is going to get a lot of teams in. So what does Vandy Hoops need to do to get themselves in position to be considered for the NCAA tournament? Also, there's a chance that Clark Lea may have found his next star at running back. Makhilyn Young, a Vandy State Aggie door, by the way, is the sleeper running back that Vandy absolutely needs. Now, I was looking on the Door Report. I was looking on Vandy's rival site, and I came across something very, very interesting, very promising, and something that I'm not surprised by, because when he committed last year from the portal, I was bummed that it couldn't work out this past year, because I think they could have used him and used the depth that he would have provided with A.J. Newberry being banged up and Cedric Alexander being a little bit beat up. I think they could have had a third guy. But this is something that's very, very exciting. And this is something that I'm not shocked at, because when I looked at him, that's kind of the vibe that I got. He just needed more reps, and he was just kind of coming into his own developmentally as a running back. But Makhilyn Young is going to be, I think, very, very special running back. I think he very well could be. And I don't know how much credit I was giving it, or maybe I was like underestimating it, but I think there's something to his speed. And I think that there is a chance that he could be the home run guy that I've been talking about Vandy needing to get. And I just, sometimes you don't, sometimes with the running back position, like there's some guys that are like obviously fast and they're just burners. And there's some guys that are, you're like, oh, you see him run and you're just like, oh, okay. Yeah, he's fast. Like he can go. Right. And then there's some guys you're obviously like, this guy's obviously a hammer. He's a power back. He's not ever going to break a long run. He's got, if he gets 12 yards on a carry, we're in good shape. Makhilyn Young is definitely not that. And I think Makhilyn Young still very raw as a talent, which is why I don't think he's necessarily going to be the starter, but I do think he's going to be a heavy rotational guy. And I do think my prediction is he could be kind of that 1B, that running back 2 that can come in and get a lot of work alongside Cedric Alexander because of his speed, because of some of his instincts. Where I noticed him the most was against Auburn. I think he had one of his best games against Auburn. I mean, the dude was he would just find open run lanes and he would just shoot through them. And he didn't get a ton of carries because they had Star Thomas, and I think they had somebody else too, if I'm not mistaken. But he was like number 3 in that pecking order, and he was still very raw that year. But I thought he had some really, really good reps. What limited reps he got throughout the season, I thought he showed some promise in his ability. And, when you're in the transfer portal, a lot of times, unless you're Ohio State or Georgia or Texas or Alabama or Miami, like you can't, like the rest of the people getting guys out of the portal, potential is really all you have to go on. It's just basically an older version of high school recruiting. You don't really know how they're going to assimilate into your program. Like the guys that Ohio State's getting, the guys that Michigan are getting, the guys that are going to Miami and Georgia, Texas, like those guys are going just for better business deals, and those guys are going because they're bona fide stars that need to be in a big market. Like you get a bona fide, like you get a high school kid that just blows up. Like let's say some kid can't qualify out of high school, and he signs it like, I don't know. Let's say he signs at like San Diego State, and he just absolutely blows up. Now, all the big boys are coming to get, like USC is going to be on him. You're going to have Georgia on him. You're going to have Ohio State on him, and he's going to go somewhere like that, like the Branch brothers going to Georgia. Like that's, what they've got. They're leaving USC for a better opportunity. You know what they bring to the table. There is no potential. You know what they've got. Like Barryon Brown going to LSU, like what he brings to the table. Like there's no doubt. He just needed to find a spot where they would use him better. Because Kentucky, it was criminal how they misused him. They couldn't take advantage of what he brought to the table. So, but schools like Vandy and some of I guess the others that aren't the schools I named, they have to go on potential. And so Makhilyn Young with limited reps, like you can, like it just takes a little bit of more work in your evaluation process, and you have to go on like Chance Fitzgerald or Trent Haskins, those guys, like those that takes a lot of evaluation, and that takes a lot of risk, right? Loic Fungi thought he was going to be a good player. He wasn't. He was one of those that didn't pan out, but had some of the skill set, right? But like Makhilyn Young, you can see kind of his instincts, you can see the speed and the burst, and that's what Vandy needs. Like Vandy needs a guy that's going to hit the run lanes the way they're supposed to be, and he's going to hit it at 100 miles an hour, right? Cedric Alexander is a rock solid. He's a guy that can get you big chunk yardage, and he's a guy that's going to get you tough yardage. He's a guy that's going to be a dog in the backfield. He's unequivocally the starter unless he's beat up severely, right? He is the guy, and he's going to be the guy. He's the best running back in that room, probably by a wider margin than he was last year. He showed a lot of improvement. So I don't think Makhilyn Young, unless injury happens, is going to take over that lead back. But I do think when you look at him versus AJ Newberry, I do think with what Vandy wants to do, he might be a better fit as the second option when you come in. Now, in passing situations, like I think AJ Newberry goes to more of a niche role, a carved out role, and he's good in his own right. But I think there's some things that possibly Makhilyn Young brings to the table, and it's not saying AJ Newberry's bad. I think they have a good problem where you have three playable running backs, and with what Vandy wants to do, that's a good problem to have. That's a good thing. You're going to have three backs that are going to sustain a season's worth of carries, and it's going to keep Cedric Alexander fresh. It's going to keep Newberry fresh. It's going to keep Young fresh, and it's going to allow these freshmen, Gabe Fields and Johan Cardenas and those guys. It's going to allow them to kind of slowly assimilate and slowly develop. And maybe those guys come in later in the season and contribute because one of the top three are going to get. Now, I still do think they need to add another body in the spring portal period. Like I do think you need another guy for depth purposes. The more I think about it, with what Makhilyn Young can do, I think you have a chance to now not have the pressure of having to add a home run guy. Now maybe you can add a guy that's a little more developmental. Maybe you add a depth piece, a specialty piece, like a guy that's just a bruiser, like an anchor that comes in, like actually more of an anvil that comes in like in the fourth quarter and is just kind of a closer, and he's just somebody that nobody wants to tackle. Like maybe you can add that in the portal. But Makhilyn Young, running back one, I would say he's more of like a 1B because, I think Cedric is that good. And I think that, Makhilyn Young is still up and coming a little bit. We just don't know. He didn't play last year, so we really don't know where he's at in his developmental process. He could come in and just boom, immediately get the hot hand. And there's going to be some games where Newberry gets the more carries. There's going to be games where Alexander gets a lot of the carries. There's going to be some games where Makhilyn Young gets most of the work. It's going to be based on hot hand. It's going to be based on, situational stuff. Like if we're in more of a passing mode, like maybe Newberry's in the game more, like it's going to be, and you're going to have that luxury a little bit. So, that's one thing that I like about being able to have Makhilyn Young. And now you've got that speed. I didn't realize that he had that kind of speed, but maybe he does. Maybe that was the thing that I overlooked when I looked at Makhilyn Young. But he might be the speed guy that we need to be able to hit this offense at the next level, and to be able to take some of the pressure off of Diego Pavia, to where he's not having to shoulder all the burden of carrying this offense. And so now, everybody wins. And I think you have an offense that's more explosive. And I think that's going to open some things up in the passing game, because now Pavia is a little bit more focused. He can do a lot more. So I'm really excited about that. And I think this, I'll go more into detail throughout the course of the offseason of how kind of he mixes into the run game and mixes into the overall philosophy. But Makhilyn Young is going to be good. We'll leave that here. And he's going to be good. He's going to be good. So, but basketball, I'm going to switch to basketball real quick. They host Texas in a must-win situation. What do they have to do to ensure that they have a chance? We'll talk about that next. All right. FanDuel. Yes. Did you know FanDuel? We're going to talk about them later. We're going to talk about PrizePicks for right now. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with PrizePicks. The best place for daily fantasy sports is indeed PrizePicks. And so what you're looking at is 10 million members and billions of winnings awarded. PrizePicks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. So here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 player projections. And if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. PrizePicks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes needs to only throw 1 yard to win. Imagine that. You get a freebie. It's like a free space in bingo. Pair that with one more correct pick and you're cashing out. So my picks, it's brutal. You can take some brutal losses. It makes it fun though, because like you can track this whole thing. But I was 1 pick away from having a perfect six legger. And all I needed in the NFC Championship game was Philly to kick 2 field goals. 2 field goals. Usually your kicker has an opportunity to kick 4. Philly didn't kick a single field goal. And Jake Elliott, cost my I got 5 out of 6 on that one. And Jake Elliott was the reason I didn't get 6 out of 6. So I'm looking at the board this week. I'm selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards. I'm selecting more for a quarterback's passing yardage. Maybe, I don't know. I might go less because the defenses are really good. What I love most, though, is the fast, safe withdrawals. So when I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. So check out the promos tab also to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners, big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $100 million. $1 million in promo funds. So download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONCollege. Get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC. Phenomenal job Chris Gordy does. So, but basketball. Let's go basketball real quick, because basketball is in a place to where I think they're on the cusp of being able to be a legitimate team. There's a few things that they need, but they're right there. There's a couple things they need to do. First thing they need to do is beat Texas this weekend. They host Texas in a must-win situation. They are actually up for an NCAA tournament spot. I think that's still on the line. They still have a chance at that. And their road gets a little bit easier if they can pull a win here at home against Texas, which is doable. All right, but here's how you got to have it, right? Make your shots. You can't afford poor shooting at this point. You have to make your shots. They're doing a much better job at creating open looks and smart shots. They're just not hitting them. And they're going back, they're regressing back to a few weeks ago's 3-point shooting percentages, where they went on a run of like they couldn't break 25% from 3-point land. And there was one game where they shot like 15% better from 3-point land than they did from the field, from inside the arc, which is very odd. But, I think they have to, if they want to have a chance of winning, they have to kind of play to their style of basketball. They have to get to the rim. They have to move the ball around. They have to run. And if they can do that, they can get the crowd into it. And if the crowd's into it, they're a team right now that feeds off of that. And that's a big, big deal. So making your shots, getting to the rim, creating opportunities for yourself to have some open looks at the rim, especially when you're driving, has a good chance of getting the crowd into it. And when the crowd gets into it, you get a little bit of confidence, right? That's where Vandy is in their journey as a new team. They're a team that can feed off the crowd, but if the crowd is against them, it sends them into a spiral. But they got to make their shots if they want to get this crowd into it. If they're not hitting shots, the crowd's going to be sitting on their hands, and Texas is going to have a good day. Create scoring chances with turnovers. I think that's the next step as far as getting the crowd into it. If you can create some turnovers and take advantage of scoring points off those turnovers, now you have a chance. Now you're playing your brand of basketball. Now you're causing the other team to really kind of get discombobulated, which they did. They did a good job early against Florida of doing that. They actually, despite getting blown out by 30 points, they did a good job early with Oklahoma. In every game they've played, when they start off creating turnovers and doing a good job of defending and really making the other team work to get the ball across half court, they've been in every single game, and they've won a couple of those games against top 10 teams because of that, because they're creating chances off turnovers, and they're creating scoring chances, and they're capitalizing on those scoring chances. So if I had to amend this graphic, I would say create and finish scoring chances after turnovers or with turnovers. So that's something that I think as a basketball team you have to kind of focus on, because that gets the crowd into it. That's what you do best, right? That's what you do best, is defend the ball up the court and really force them into bad passes, bad shots, things like that, dribbling off their leg, stepping out of bounds, all that good stuff. So if you can take advantage of that, and the superstar that's pictured here, if he can have another big night, which he's been pretty consistent in having those big nights, just feed the ball, run the offense through him, let him do his thing. And him and Jalen Carey, I think, are the two guys that are kind of carrying this operation right now, and they're going to need some help. But if you can get those two guys going, at least you're off to a good start. And now we're in business. All right. And then the last thing, which they did a really poor job of down the stretch against Florida, is defending the arc. All right. Because if you go against a team and you're, giving them open looks at 3-point, they're going to eventually hit, because these are essentially pro basketball players. So they're going to hit these shots. And so you got to do a good job of defending the arc and making sure that they still have contested looks from 3-point land. And I guarantee you, they probably won't be as quick to shoot those if you're making it difficult. So that's kind of where I'm at with the keys to this game, is score, get on a run early, get the crowd into it, hit your shots, create those turnovers, make it laborious for Texas to get the ball at the floor. Like make it hard on them. Make it hard on them to pass the ball. Make it hard on them to create shots. Make it hard on them to move around. Just Be physical with them a little bit, right? Force them to hit free throws if they're going to get to the rim. Get hands in their face. Make them make difficult shots, because if they get on a run making difficult shots, there's not really much else you can do. You just got to hold on until they're no longer hot, which in basketball, that'll happen. Get rebounds. That's the fourth thing on the list. If there was a fourth thing, get rebounds and just keep the crowd into it. Keep the crowd juiced. And so I think that's one of the ways you can get this thing. So I think they can pull it out. I think they will. Memorial Magic is a thing. And it, against Kentucky and against Tennessee, you had hostile crowds, you had sellout crowds, and you had a jacked up building. I hope they can do the same thing against Texas. Welcome Texas to the SEC. Welcome them to Memorial Gym the right way by sending them home with an L. So that's kind of where I'm at with this game. But it's just going to be like, because you lack size, because you lack a sharp shooter, you're going to just have to kind of make up for that by running and by creating space and by pressuring the ball as soon as it enters the court on the defensive end, and pressuring the defense as soon as you get your hands on the ball. And with that, there's a psychological edge that you can gain. So that's kind of where I'm at there. And that's the psychological edge that they gained in all of their wins. They were able to do that. In their losses, they may have done that at times, but I think sometimes they, especially on the road, I think they get in this trap, the psychological trap of, oh crap, we've desperately got to take this crowd out of it, and they start trying too hard. So that's kind of where I'm at there. But anyway, I'm going to talk Super Bowl. I don't know, that's not really related to Vandy, but it's one of the biggest sporting events in the world. So I'm going to talk about it. Okay. I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to give you my picks. I'm going to tell you how this game's going to go. But we're going to do that next. We're going to wrap up the show with Super Bowl talk. All right, now it's time to talk about FanDuel. Yeah, for sure. Here's the thing about FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. And what better way to ring in Super Bowl than with FanDuel Sportsbook? It's one game, two teams, Eagles versus Chiefs, and endless possibilities. And there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, Saquon Barkley, calling the MVP, Patrick Mahomes, or even betting on the coin toss, tails, FanDuel will make it easy to get in on the action. With live betting all game long, you can adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you can place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's icing on the cake. So download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet just $5, and if you win, you'll score $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of Super Bowl 59. All right, wrapping up the show here at Locked On Vandy. Leave me some feedback. Follow the show. Follow me on social media. Follow everything. Like and subscribe. Give me feedback. I love the feedback. Just don't get too personal or too nasty. Be constructive with your feedback. Don't just say I hate getting feedback that says you suck. Okay, cool. Not that I'm offended that you say I suck, but just at least tell me why. And then maybe I won't in the future. Maybe I can fix it, right? Because if it's so bad that you felt compelled to leave me a comment that I suck, at least just tell me why, so that for future listeners, they don't have to endure the same hardship that you had to endure, right? But I do love the feedback, positive and negative, as long as you're telling me why, and as long as you're, as long as it's something that's not super hurtful, super personal. I'm cool with that. So leave me some feedback. I love it. If there's anything that you want me to address, follow me on social media. Let me know. Be like, hey, Corey, I would love for you to talk about blank, right? So you can tell me. You can always tell me that. You can play the role of producer if you'd like. I'll be more than happy to answer anything you guys want to know, right? This is for you. This show is for you. It's not for me. It's for you. It's for you to hear, and help and me help you drive your opinion, even if it's just, hey, even if you completely disagree with me, that's okay. Because at least I sparked your opinion, right? I got you thinking about that scenario, and I got you thinking, if you agree or disagree with me, it doesn't matter. It's the fact that you had your own opinion on the situation, and you got there because, hey, you heard my point of view, and then you feel free to give me your point of view in the comments, which those of you that do that, I love that. And then, of course, the opposing fan trash talk. I do enjoy that too. Those are always fun. I think South Carolina was the most trash talking I got. So that was a lot of fun. Thank you, South Carolina fans. And thank you for all the friendly trash talk. Okay. But Super Bowl 59. Okay. Maybe I get some Philly people in this. Philly is only 1.5 point favorites. Here's my betting lines on FanDuel. Okay. I'm going to continue this. This is going to be like one big FanDuel ad. So I'm taking the Chiefs minus 1.5. I'm taking a Saquon Barkley anytime touchdown, and I'm taking a Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown. And I do think that the Eagles are going to score 2 touchdowns. I do think the Chiefs are going to score 1.5 more points than the Eagles, but I think 2 of the Eagles' touchdowns are going to come from these 2 individuals, because there's going to be a brotherly shove that results in a touchdown. There always is. And Saquon is Saquon. He's going to go off. So these are my Super Bowl picks. If you want to take them individually, take them as a parlay, whatever you want to do, whatever you feel compelled to do. That's what it is. So those are my picks. But this game's going to be interesting, right? Because, there's a large section of the country that's I'm not saying rooting interest. I'm just saying predicting and picking. There's a large section of the country picking the Chiefs to win this game, and for a lot of reasons. And to me, obviously, like, the refs are in your favor, I guess. You could say the whole ref thing, but I don't know. I'm going to, it's kind of overblown. But here's why I think the Chiefs are going to win this game, because I think it's going to come down to coaching, because the Eagles are as talented as they come. But, like, why haven't they won anything? Why have they fallen apart in the later parts of the game? Why are they, because, I think coaching wise, and the culture that's been set by Nick Sirianni is so highly emotional that I think these guys just wear down, because they're just such a passionate team that that goes against them later in the games, right? They're so intense. They're so emotionally driven that I think they just get simply worn out. And against the I call them the Redskins, against the Commanders, they were just so jazzed up, but, like, they didn't have to finish that game. Like, they were blowing them out. My kid in second period, I have a kid in second period that could have coached the Eagles in that game. Like, they were juiced up for that one, right? But there's been some games, like, they played the Commanders earlier in the season, and the Commanders needed to win it to stay in playoff contention. It was essentially a playoff game for them. And the Eagles just fell apart in the second half. Like, that concerns me. And they've done that at certain points throughout the season. There's certain times where I think the defense gets exhausted. There's certain points and there's certain instances where Jalen Hurts just kind of disappears a little bit. Like, that's concerning. Like, I love Jalen Hurts as a quarterback, but, like, where does he go? Like, what happens to him? It's almost like he vanishes at some point, right? I just think the Chiefs are better coached, and I think that's going to be the difference. I think it's going to come down to coaching, because the line obviously says it's going to be a close game, and I agree with the line. I think it's going to be a close game. But I think the edge goes – I think they're giving the 1.5 to the Chiefs because of Andy Reid. And that's a really good reason to give them the 1.5, because he is a difference maker when it comes to coaching, as far as experience, decisions, creativity, all of that. Andy Reid is elite. Nick Sirianni is not. Nick Sirianni is a very good coach. He wins a good bit, but I think he's just missing some of the key elements that Andy Reid has. from being, he's a few of those qualities short of being any truly elite coach. Now, if he wins this game, Nick Sirianni, I think there's a section of people that would say, okay, well, maybe now he can be in the discussion for being elite. But like, if you're fighting your own fans, you're not elite. I know he's a passionate guy. I know I know that's something that he just does, but you're not elite. Like, if you get to that level, you're not elite yet. Right? Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm just not quite there yet with Nick Sirianni. I'm just not. And against Andy Reid, I just think it's a tough matchup for him because he's going to get out coached. And it's not, and as much as I'm not sure about Nick Sirianni, I would take him over, half the coaches in the NFL for sure, maybe even a little bit more. But I'm not taking him over Andy Reid. Andy Reid's arguably one of the best to ever do it. So I just don't think they're going to be successful against that. I just don't. So that's why I'm taking the Chiefs. But I do think Saquon Barkley is going to score. I do think Jalen Hurts is going to score. So take those player props. And I do like Chiefs, and it's basically a pick 'em at this point. So, but anyway, that's all I got. Party responsibly. Super Bowl Monday should be a holiday. It's criminal that it's not. But I'll see you back here. I'll be back at you next week. Probably shift the shows down a day because of the Super Bowl. May not record Sunday night for Monday, so I may just shift everything down a day and just have to kind of make it work, I guess. So, but anyway, anchor down, behave yourselves, have fun at your Super Bowl parties, and let me know who you're picking. Okay, Chiefs, Eagles. Let me know who you're picking. Let me know also what your thoughts are on Vandy basketball and Makhilyn Young being a factor at running back. So let me know all of that stuff. We'll see you. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.